Hey up and welcome to another episode of Last Cast. Today you join us once again at Sunrise Lakes just outside Harrogate, and what we're looking to do today is catch a net of silverfish. We're on the middle lake today, which is one of the three lakes here, and it's the only one that I haven't actually fished yet. And I'm looking to sort of build on what I've sort of learnt from a session on the bottom lake over in winter when I caught a good sort of 20 pounder silvers, and I caught a lot of those fish shallow in the top 2 or 3 foot of the water, and that was in the middle of winter. So coming towards the back end of summer, the fish should be even shallower. And that's going to dictate my approach today to the venue. This lake, it's got some good skimmers, plenty of silverfish and a few carp as well, so we may encounter a few carp, but if we catch carp they're going straight back, and we're just going to try and put together a nice net of silvers today. We'll have a look at the rigs that I'm going to use today. As you can see, I've got quite a few set up. I've actually got 7 in total, 6 of which are shallow rigs, and the idea being is that they're all identical apart from 2. So I've got 4 Preston Chiantis, and those are set at 6-inch intervals, starting at just over 2 foot and working my way down to 12 inches. And then I've got 2 really shallow diber rigs, which if the fish come right up in the water, that's what I'm looking to try and catch them with. Underneath that I've also got a deck rig, so I'll just quickly run through one of the rigs. As I say, they're all identical to these Chianti rigs, apart from the elastics and the depth. In terms of the main lines, 011 power line, nice and durable, so I can step up if I want to in hook length line. I've got 4x10s Chianti there, number 4 elastic on these two, the 2 foot and the 18-inch rig. And as I say, that's locked on there with 3 float rubbers. Coming down, the shotting's just 4 number 10s, and that comes down to a 6-inch hook length of 010 fluorocarbon to an 18 silverfish maggot pattern hook. So nice light hook for caster, but equally it's very good for sections of worm. Say I'm getting pestered by a lot of small fish, then I'll look to fish small sections of worm over the top of the loose feed. Moving up the rigs, as I say, they get shallower and shallower as we go across to the shallowest Chianti, which as I say is set probably about 12 inches deep or so. And the shallower they get, the elastics get slightly heavier, as I say. So the two deepest of the shallow rigs are number 4s, then number 5s, and then it moves on to these 2 dibber rigs. These are for what I'll be trying to use if say the fish come what I call almost like silly shallow. If they come in the top sort of 4 inches of water, these are the rigs that I'm going to try and catch them on. Double 4 elastic, because often you can get carp in those really shallow layers of water. We've got MAP S3s in 4B8s on both rigs, which is a dibber style pattern, nice and light, but again buoyant bristles, so it's going to avoid, say, obviously when you come really shallow there's going to be vortices and things like that you've got to deal with. That thicker bristle is going to remain more stable, and also I can fish worm a lot more confidently and aggressively on these rigs should I need to. So to that end, the line on these is 011 straight through. We've got a bulk again just set above the hook length, or well, I say what would be the hook length because it's going straight through, of 3 number 10s on both rigs, 18B 911s, and we've only got about 4 inches there. That rig I'm looking to fish through the water a little bit more, and this one I've set those right above that 4-inch length of line, and that, as you can see, is only on about 12 inches of line, so I can move those shot down to 2 or 3 inches if I need to, and that's the depth that I can fish at. In terms of the depth that's in front of me, I've only got about 3 and a bit foot, so I've just got set up a Garblino DC23 in 0.3 of a gram, 011 power line, same hook lengths as the Chianti rigs, and again a strung bulk, so this is going to sit below that last rig. As you can see there, depth wise, we're starting about a foot and a bit off bottom with the Chiantis, but this rig will cover the bottom, well, what is below that. Effectively the casters that go below that are going to be on the deck. So that brings me on to the hook baits and the bait selection. I've got a few red maggots just as a change hook bait if I'm really struggling, but the main feed I've got 3 pints of casters, and I've got some dendrobinas as well, and I'm going to fish a little worm head. As I say, it's a lot more durable than a caster, stops it getting bust, and it can also pick out a few better fish in the peg. So as I say, that's everything looked at. The pegs, as you can see behind me, lovely peg, about 13 and a bit metres wide up to the island, and I'm going to look to fish probably about 5 metres out. So as I say, we'll crack on with the session now and see what we can catch. Right, so I'm going to go for the first cast of the day. The first thing I'm going to do is pick up the deepest of my shallow rigs, and I'm actually going to start on a maggot just to see what's down there. Just going to slip that onto the size 18 hook. And then just ship out. As always with fishing, you want to have a far bank marker, which I've got. I'm just going to loose feed casters there. one option that I've got my spare sections behind me just in case I need to follow the fish out, or say I encounter bigger fish. It's always important to have those next to you because we are fishing light elastics, and if we do encounter like a carp or something a bit bigger on a number 4 elastic, I need to be able to follow that fish out. As you can see there, the reason why I've gone for that little spread bulk above the hook length is so that float settles immediately, so I'm getting down to the depth that I want to be. The reason why I've also got so many rigs set up, I'm just going to keep working the rig, is so I can maintain that short length of line between the float and the pole tip, just so I can hit bites really quickly. Obviously if you had just one rig set up and you were just changing the depth, then you'd lose that long length. Well, you'd have to change the length of line above the float. So just going to keep those casters going and hopefully we'll get a shoal of fish in front of us. Got a bit of a crosswind today, which is blowing down the lake towards sort of a bay area there, but it is a cold wind today, so I didn't want to be fishing sort of in the teeth of it, because that would make rig presentation quite hard and it'd also put the fishing off. Little indication there, but I'm just going to change that hook bait over. Let's just come off as I was shipping back. As I say, we're on the back end of summer now, and the weather's definitely turning, so it might take a little bit longer to get the fish going. One thing that you'll note I'm doing as well is I'm not breaking the pole down to aid the speed factor of the fishing. There's one on now. Looks like a small fish. I'm able to swing them directly to hand like that without having to break down, so it speeds up the process. Nice little roach that time. It's a nice little fish to start with. So as you can see, I've not had to break the pole down and I've got the roller set behind me nice and fairly high, so when I do get the fish back to this area that I've got next to my keep net, I can just lift and the fish is straight into the hand. So that's going to speed up the whole process of catching these fish at speed. You'll also notice I've got my discorder on that little side tray next to me as well, again, so I'm not having to open the drawer or anything. Because the aim of the game today is to catch at speed. There's another one of these small fish. If these persist, then I may have to move to the caster. But again, about an ounce or so a piece, ounce or two, good weight builders. And obviously, I'm hitting pretty much every single bite now, so far. And what I'm going to look to do, if I start to miss bites, then that's telling me that the fish have come shallower. And as that happens, what I'll do is progress through the rigs as the day wears on and gets a bit warmer as well, to hopefully end up on the shallow rigs, or the really shallow rigs. The feed rate today I'm not actually going to change, I'm going to keep it pretty much constant. See a lot smaller fish that time. I think I'll switch to the caster already. Getting plenty of bites on maggot, but I certainly think that a caster will pick out a few better quality fish. What I'm also going to do is I'll leave some casters out of the water just to darken off as the session goes on. And those are going to be my hook baits. In terms of how I hook the caster, it's fairly crude. There's no point burying the hook or anything like that. You want as much hook point showing as you can get away with. Another small fish. But again, you can quickly see how, if I can just get hold of him, how you can build a weight of these nice little fish. That's 4 fish already for probably half a pound. So you can imagine as the day goes on over the 6-hour period that we're going to fish today, as if it was a match, how quickly you can start to build a weight. And obviously straight off the mark we're into fish immediately. If the session, say the weather gets worse or it does go quiet, then I can always pick up the deck rig and have a look on that as well, because obviously those casters I'm putting plenty of bait in at good regular intervals, and obviously not all of that's going to get eaten as it's falling. A lot of it will settle on the bottom initially, and if I start to see bubbles and fizzing and things like that, that's when it's important that you do have a deck rig to go on to. Just missed a bite on the caster there, because often that can be an indication of skimmers or some better quality fish down there. So it's important that you cover all the levels in the water. Say if it was the height of summer and it was 20 odd degrees today, then I'd just look at setting up two or three shallow rigs to cover the top 18 inches and then a deck rig. But as I say, the weather looks like it might be a bit changeable today, and so having rigs set at different depths is probably going to pay dividends. Just missed a couple of bites there on that caster. So immediately that's telling me that the fish have come shallower. So straight away, as you can see, it's only been a couple of minutes into the session so far. I'm going to actually switch to another rig, the one that's set 6 inches shallower than this one, and hopefully be able to show you how that can very quickly change the amount of bites that I'm hitting. Obviously in winter with these kind of rigs, you might want to spread that little bulk out a little bit more, get more of a natural fall through the water column, but as I say, with the time of year that we've got at the moment, the fish are going to be feeding fairly aggressively somewhere in the water column, and it's just about getting that bait down to them. The droppers really aren't so much a means of presenting the bait in a natural fashion. They're more of a deliverer to get the bait down to the depth that it needs to be. And that's the entire premise of what we're doing today, is actually looking to find the best depth to catch these fish. Another one of these roach, but again, that took it a lot quicker, just after the bulk had just about reached depth, so I suspect it's not going to be long before we're looking at moving on to those even shallower rigs. But the other thing you'll notice as well is how quickly I can hit these bites with such a short length of line above the pole tip. As soon as that float moves, I'm able to hit the bite. So obviously there's no confusion then. Say if it is an issue of the fish being shallower and that's why I'm missing bites, then it's not a case of me starting to think that maybe the length of line's wrong. That's a better fish already. It's actually a rudd this time, and that was shallower again. So I'm going to see if I get one more fish, but I may already think to move to that next rig, another 6 inches shallower, so we'll be looking at 18 inches of depth then. As I say, I have no doubt as the session goes on and the weather warms up that we'll probably at this rate end up on those dibber rigs before too long. But the important thing is that, say in a match scenario, if I didn't have these sort of deeper shallow rigs at the start of the session, I wouldn't be getting half as many bites, I wouldn't be catching as many fish, I'd have to wait for them to come up. Whereas with these rigs I can get that bait down to where they are actually feeding. Again, it's important with these rigs, keep turning them over, because the whole element of this style of fishing, to draw fish up in the water, is noise. So I've had a little bit of a lift on the float there. I suspect there's a few fish shallower. That one nearly took the pole out of my hands, that one. Really felt it pull on the pole tip. Again, that short line, just going to lengthen it slightly because the wind is picking up. That short length of line also acts like a bolt rig if the fish are feeding really aggressively. Again, that's why I've got those dibber rigs. If the fish do really start to feed aggressively in the shallow layers, where they're darting in and out of the feed and really hammering everything that goes into the water, that short length of line acts like a bolt rig and they'll hook themselves. In terms of the elastics, how I've got them set, the 4s and 5s are set quite pingy because of the depth, and I'm having to fish them. There's another fish now, another one of these roach. Whereas the double 4s that I've got on the dibber rigs, they're obviously more powerful elastic, and I've got those set slacker because I don't want those fish that are really high in the water bolting off. When I hook them, I want them to just go down in the peg and swim out, especially if they're carp and things like that. Obviously when carp do come into that kind of depth of water, and you do hook one on a heavy elastic, it's going to spook everything in front of you. Another one of these rudd, just dropped off that time, get him into the net. So by having a slightly heavier elastic set soft, they'll just go down in the water and swim out the peg, and hopefully leave it for you to catch straight away, straight afterwards. As you can see, the session's going well already. It's bite to chuck. And I've already moved up one rig and I'm straight away thinking now. So that one's nailed it right on the drop as well. But I'm going to shallow up again. So I think these two deeper shallow rigs have played their part. So I'm now just going to switch to an even shallower Chianti rig. As I say, hopefully we'll be able to get those fish feeding really shallow. But again, as I was saying about the weather conditions, and this time of year, they can be very changeable. Suddenly, you know, it'll go from being nice and bright and 17, 18 degrees to being really overcast with rain. And then you wouldn't, say if you'd have chopped down a standard shallow rig and you wanted to go deeper again, you actually couldn't. Whereas, because of the way I've got these set, I actually have that ability to just put on a deeper rig, and if I think the fish have gone down in the water. Missed that bite this time. There's one on. And again, you can see that's a slightly better stamped roach. Often the bigger fish will be higher up in the water this time of year, but again, it can also be the inverse of that. You can end up catching the bigger fish deeper down. Because obviously they will sort of sort themselves out, if you like, in terms of where each species and size of fish is happy to feed in the peg. You might end up catching plenty of good quality rudd 12 inches deep, but you might have a few skimmers sat below that at say 1.5 foot. And then that's when those slightly deeper shallow rigs can come into play again. Obviously the depth of the venue also plays a factor. Say it was a venue that was 10 foot deep, I wouldn't set rigs up like that. I'd have them set at probably 10 or 12 inch intervals rather than 6 inch. Just missed a couple of bites there. But interesting, these aren't taking the bait as it's falling so much. So I think they sat somewhere between, on this rig, 18 inches and 2 foot deep. Let's say time-wise today, it's about, what, 9:30 in the morning. So I'm not expecting the fish to be really shallow just yet. Again, bigger roach. Had to wait a little bit longer for that bite, but again, it's only a matter of seconds anyway. So I think today we might have to sort of chase the fish up and down in the water. And again, it might be the case that I might have to go further out to stay in touch with the fish as well. In terms of the distance I've started at a top 2 and +2 section, so about 5 metres, which is about a third of the way across here, which is the sort of the correct kind of distance. I don't want to fish too short because straight away the fish will back off from the disturbance. But nor do I want to start too long where I'm going to lose control of the rig and struggle to throw a bait by hand. So this distance is a happy medium at the moment. Missed a couple of bites that time. Right, and there's the first better fish of the session. Nice roach, this one. Just going to net him. Interesting there, I've gone back on the a slightly deeper rig because it went a bit quiet. And as you can see, being rewarded with a lovely quality roach that time. Had a couple of bites on that shallower rig than this, sort of the third rig along. But then it went a bit quiet, missed a couple of bites, so I've gone deeper and immediately I've had that better quality roach. So it just goes to show the difference that it makes. Again, all these fish now fall into casters. I've had a couple of chucks on maggot and they've produced really small fish. But if we can get a few roach like that going, you can see how quickly you can build a weight. It's probably 2 or 3 times the size of any fish that we've had so far. The peg interest has gone a little bit quieter, and as I say, I've dropped down in the water column and straight away had that better fish, so it might be that there's a few better roach turning up in the peg now. And again, on that deeper rig, there's a skimmer. I think the better fish are already turning up now. Again, that one's hooked in the top lip, which tells me that those fish are sitting slightly deeper. If I was hooking them in the bottom lip, then I know the bait's gone past them. But in the top lip, they're just coming up a little bit to get that bait. This is definitely the rig to be on at the moment. It's the second one along, about just over 2 foot deep. So I don't think the 2.5 foot rig's quite optimal in this wind, but again, it's something I may look to employ. And there's the first bed of fish. Again, looks like another one of these quality roach or skimmers. It might be, actually it's nice golden rudd, this one. Stunning fish. How about that for a fish? Absolutely amazing colours on him. Again, getting some better quality fish now. The past few chucks had a skimmer, quality roach and that nice rudd. One thing that I will note as well with the rigs that I didn't mention earlier is the fact that I'm actually using Dacron connectors. It's absolutely essential with this style of fishing that you use a Dacron, because with a standard Stonfo style connector, you'd be getting the line wrapping over the tip all the time with the where the bush is and things like that, especially with the short lines that we're using today. Whereas a Dacron connector and using an internal bush means that the rig can't do that even when I'm shipping out and the rig's actually lying along the pole almost. When I do get the rig to length, I can just flick it over and it's presented perfectly. Right, and there's a quality fish now on that deeper rig. Interesting, what I've done is I've missed a few bites and they've sort of dried up a little bit on that sort of 2 foot rig, or sorry, 18-inch deep rig, and straight away I've put this on with the number 4 elastic and 2 foot, and straight away the float's buried and we're into a good fish, as you can see. Feels like a bream, and that's on that number 4 elastic. You can see it's really stretching quite a lot, and it is quality fish. There he is, lovely skimmer. Gorgeous fish. Hook's just popped out in the net and got him just in the side of the pectoral fin, so I'll just pop that out. But immediately he's responded to that change in depth. Gorgeous fish. So with any luck there'll be one or two more of those down there. Just goes to show how important that 6 inches of depth and change in terms of getting that rig to fish a little bit deeper. Straight away that fish has had it. So at the moment we're only about 45 minutes into the session, and that 2-foot rig really has done the business in terms of the most fish caught. I've had a go on the 12-inch rig and the 18-inch. I've had a few fish on the 18 and quite a few missed bites on the 12-inch rig. But this is definitely the best rig at the moment, while the temperatures are still down a little bit. Getting a bite pretty much every drop in with this now. I think obviously initially the small fish were there, we've fed quite heavily. And what's happened is a few bigger fish have come into the peg and unsettled those small fish, so that's why the bites have gone a bit funny for a while. But hopefully be able to get these bigger fish lined up now. Certainly on for a good wait if a few of those skimmers turn up. And there's another big fish now. Not sure what this is, but it could be a carp, because it has bolted off a little bit. It's definitely a bigger fish. Once again, that's on that 2-foot deep rig. Missed a few bites and then it absolutely buried. Actually, it's a big roach, this. Cracking fish, that one. How about that for a roach? Stunning fish. After that fish, what I'm going to do is go onto that slightly deeper rig, or slightly shallower rig even, because I was missing a few bites, and obviously having the floats dotted down as I have today, it's really sensitive floats. You can see if the float's lifting and things like that. That's vortices of fish above the bulk that's lifting that float up, so it gives you a good indication then that you do need to come shallower. So I'll try and put that into practice now, and hopefully we'll get a fish near enough immediately. Again, just slipping on any old caster that falls to hand, as long as it's not too soft. At the end of the day, the bait's getting straight down anyway. I'm not looking for a particularly slow fall. I want that bait to get to the depth that I want it to be fishing at quickly. Again, in line with what I've been saying about the rigs. Straight away there's vortices and things. I might have to come on to the even shallower rig now, about 12 inches deep, because I can see that floats as it's drifting in to settle. It's moving around slightly more than I'd like it to be. And that's telling me that there's fish even shallower than this. But obviously again, got to judge the peg, and if there's some quality roach 2 foot deep, then I might just stick at that, but I'll see what happens as the session goes on. As I say, it's still early days yet. Right, so as you can see now, I'm just using the deck rig to let that caster shallow line settle. Just fishing this directly underneath, and I'm picking up a few good quality skimmers, as you can see here. Double 5 elastic working nicely, nice quality fish. Obviously, the more line bites that I get on this deck rig, it gives me an indication of how many fish are starting to feed shallow. So it's a very useful tool to have in your armoury, and also lets you pick up some good quality fish like that. So on the deck, I'm just fishing sections of worms on this size 18 silverfish maggot hook. That's good to go for another one. And I'm just giving myself probably 15 or so minutes to let that caster line settle. Then as soon as I do go back on it, I'm going to start pretty much from scratch. Start at 2.5 foot and work my way back up again. Because it didn't seem that the fish were happy to settle at any particular depth, so just by going on the deck and catching a few skimmers, I'm letting them decide where they want to be without hammering them too much with the shallow rigs. Right, and there's another one. So I think what I'll do now, I've had a few skimmers on this deck line. Actually, it's a nice roach, that one. But I'm going to go shallow again, as I say, starting at 2.5 foot, something like that, and then working back up through the rigs to try and catch as shallow as I can. About an hour and a quarter into the session now. Had some quality fish like that, so we're really building a good weight, but obviously I want to try and up the catch rate, so I'm going to pop on a shallow rig and crack on with that now. Right, so there's a fish now on another shallower rig. As you can see, I've already moved up through the rigs now to sort of what's the number 3 rig, about 2 foot deep, 18 inches deep. And this looks like a skimmer at that depth. Biggest fish of the day by far, that. Well, I'll just shuffle him in. You can probably see there by the rig just how shallow he was sat. So we've had a few little movements on the float there with him. And clearly there's a couple of fish this size just sat picking off those casters at a very shallow depth. What a cracking fish to catch, only, what, probably 18 inches deep. So I'm going to go straight back out now on this rig, because that seems to be the depth where I'm catching or getting a lot more bites that are hittable. As I say, with the other rigs, I probably gave them about a minute to 2 minutes before I realised I was missing a few bites, and I've just worked my way through them up to this rig. I think, as you can see, the sun's come out now, it's really warming up. I may even look to go onto those diber style rigs, because I think the fish are now going to be sat between 18 and 12 inches deep. So hopefully we can capitalise on that in a warmer spell by picking up those really shallow rigs. You can see another fish now. Certainly seems to be the way to go at the moment. So I'm not going to forget about those other rigs, and obviously the weather can change, so the fish might go back down in the water, and always I've got the option of going onto that deck rig, which already has produced 3 skimmers and a nice roach. But as you can see, when I was on that deck rig, by loose feeding constantly, the fish have come right up in the water. Couple that with the warm temperatures, and that's produced a couple of fish really quickly for us. Right, so as you can see, we're into fish on one of the dibber rigs now. Interesting what happened, I was fishing about a foot deep as it was warming up. Just try and swing this one out. Nice roach that time. As I was saying, interesting what happened was I was catching a few fish on the foot deep rig, getting a good steady stream of fish, and I started to miss a few bites even. And what I ended up doing was, rather than going onto the shallower rigs, because the weather was fairly unsettled at the time, I thought what I'll do is go onto the deck and try and just let the fish settle at an even shallower depth, where they, rather than them moving up and down in the water constantly, I wanted to try and get them fishing or feeding as shallow as I could. So I went onto the deck and had a couple of skimmers while being loose feeding, and then straight away, as soon as I've come back shallow, I've started at a foot deep, started missing bites, gone shallower again, and straight away I've been into a good run of fish. So I've had a good run of fish on the deck as well. But now that the temperatures are warming up, those dibber rigs are now going to come into much more of an effect. I've had a couple of bream at about a foot deep as well, so I know that the bream are happy to come up in the water. But equally, whenever there's a bit of a quiet spell, I think the fish are becoming unsettled, then I end up going on the deck, giving it probably 2 or 3 minutes while I just loose feed. Just missed one there, and letting them settle again. And then as soon as I pick up a shallow rig again, they seem to be responding really well. So as you can tell by just moving up and down in the water fairly constantly today, being able to put together a really good stream of fish. As it turns out, there's been plenty of skimmers in the peg as well, so to build the weight, that's what I've been really trying to go after. But it seems today, as we're getting halfway through the session now, it's probably on about 3.5 hour mark into the session. The fish are now, rather than being between sort of 2 foot and 18 inches deep, they're now between 18 and 12. And that's where these rigs are really coming into their own. Right, so we're just coming into the last 10 minutes of the session or so now. I think just checking the watch, yeah, another 10 minutes. Interesting, what I've done is I've moved on from the shallow fishing because it's gone flat calm and they've gone very finicky. I've had a really good spell fishing one of the dibber rigs, the slightly deeper one, set about 10 inches deep. I had a fantastic couple of hours after midday and beyond, sort of catching rudd, roach and even a few skimmers really shallow. And since that point I've not actually looked at even picking up any of the chanty rigs. While that's been going on though, I've been loose feeding quite heavily. And what I've noticed is there's a bit of fizzing coming up off the bottom. So I've picked up the deck rig, as I say, when the shallow fishing went a bit iffy. And I've gone down then straight away, I've had a 3 pound bream. As you can see now, there's plenty of fizzing. So what I've decided to do for the last 10 minutes or 15 minutes is really target these bonus fish. So I've cupped in a bit of castor, probably about a quarter pot, just had a lift bite then. And fished it out and had another sort of bream about 2 or 3 pounds. So that's the plan for the last bit of the session. But the key thing is today, we've built a lot of our weight shallow fishing, but moving between every little bit of, every sort of 6 inches of the water column. And by doing that, we've kept fish coming all day, and that's really the crucial thing. Another bite there. Say if we were carp fishing today, they would come in and out of the peg. If we're trying to build a weight just by fishing for carp, you'll have quiet spells. Whereas fishing for silvers like we have today, we've been catching consistently all through the day. And obviously, a lot of that's due to the nature in which we've set the rigs up. Being able to target a lot of the fish sort of 2.5 to 2 foot deep earlier on in the session while it was still cold, and you could probably see from the weather it was quite overcast. And then as the session's gone on, we've caught fish higher and higher in the water. Occasionally we've had to step down the rig and go a bit deeper again to stay in touch with the fish, but we've kept catching continuously throughout the session. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what we've actually got in the net. But as I say, I'm going to try and catch another couple of bream before we do call it a day at that. I've had plenty of skimmers today, quite a lot of rudd, but the bulk of the fish have been good quality roach, from anywhere from about 1.5 ounces right up through till I've had a couple that have probably been about 12 ounces or so. And then, as I say, we've caught skimmers in and amongst, but a lot of the skimmers came earlier in the session when we were fishing that bit deeper. And obviously later in the session when we've come shallower, got the fish feeding more aggressively. Just missed a bite there again. We've ended up catching a lot of rudd as well. Some really nice ones and even a couple of golden rudd. As I say, I'm just trying to look to cap off the session now and really try and boost our weight in the last sort of 10 minutes by catching some really big fish, because they did, the size of fish or the stamp of fish that I was catching on the shallow line before I decided to feed heavily on the bottom was about 2 ounces a piece. And we were catching those probably every 30 or 40 seconds. Missed another bite there. There's definitely quite a lot of fish down there. They could well be crucians. I'm just going to give them a bit of castor over the top of that. And one had hold of it then. So I was saying, this last bit of the session now is similar to when you're sort of doing margin fishing and things like that. I'm looking to catch the bonus fish. Skimmer had held that up then. And try and boost the weight really quickly. But it's been a fantastic session today. As I say, we've had to keep really working between the rigs. We've used every single rig. The only one that hasn't really caught a lot of fish is the shallowest dibber rig, set about 4 or 6 inches deep. I've had a few fish on it, probably 10 or so roach and rudd, but apart from that, the fish haven't wanted to come that shallow today. Might be because it has been, when it's been nice and bright and sunny, the water's been absolutely flat calm. And equally when it's been overcast, there's been a nice chop on it, so that's why they've sort of been in that 2 foot bracket. Again, say for example, you'd have set up 2 shallow rigs, or if I'd have set one at say 3 foot and 1.5 foot, I'd have had a few fish, but nowhere near as many as I've had today. You can see that float's constantly dipping and moving now. Really are being quite hard to hit with some of these bites, even though I'm fishing with very sensitive gear. So I've probably got 2 or 3 minutes left, so I'll just try and catch one more fish, then I think that might well be the last one of the session. So I think we'll just get this one in the net. Nice roach. And we'll call it a day at that and see what we've caught. Right, so as you can see here at sunrise, this is the final net of fish that we've ended up with. Comfortably, I'd say 40 odd pound of fish there, maybe more. The scales have obviously given up on us at this time. You can see we've caught some lovely bream, a real mixed bag of roach, rudd, some hybrids, skimmers, bream, and even a couple of gudgeon as well. So that's a fantastic net of fish, and we've been able to catch these by keeping fish coming all day, varying depths, catching a few bream on the deck and a lot of fish shallow as well. So as I say, we'll get these released now, and hopefully you've learnt a few things from today's episode, things you might be able to employ at your local commercial fishery. So once again from Last Cast, thanks for watching, don't forget to subscribe, and we'll see you on that next episode.